was this about the new government white papers for planning. Will they in any way override the present plans for the NEC area?
I think it could have an impact on it. As I said, I mean, the government is proposing to get rid of the requirement for affordable housing, so that would have a big impact certainly on the non-sewage works area, and they're basically saying the council can basically get some money from the developers instead, and given the financial pressures the councils are under, they'll certainly go for that. And it's quite likely that the strengths of the kind of area plan would be diluted by, you know, the direction of travel the government clearly wants to go in. You know, it's rightly or wrongly, it tends to think that to have sympathy with the aims of the developers, and that would mean less control over what's happening, I suspect, although it's quite difficult to anticipate what's going to happen. But given the time scales of the development, quite a lot could happen in the next 8 years. And so what people are promising now, the planners are promising lots of things that they don't really have control over. So there's a general pattern where the planners promise, oh yes, we're going to do this, there's going to be a health centre, there's going to be a secondary school, and then it doesn't happen. And they say, oh, well, that wasn't under control, it's not our fault. You know, there wasn't a secondary school at Cambourne, and then, oh, that's not our fault. And that's already happening with the Brookgate developments, which they didn't tell us anything about. Now they're saying, oh, well, yeah, that's not our fault, we can do anything about that. So I think those involved in this tend to be a bit sceptical, some would say cynical, but if you look at all the developments that are happening in Cambridge, it's not exactly unjustified.
If we could go to Sally. Can we go to Sally, or sorry, were you going to add something, John?
Well, only to say that I think one just needs to put the context around what they're trying to create. It's a sort of, there's an overused word, bubble, but it's a set of planning rules in a bubble that relates to Northeast Cambridge area. So whatever else is agreed for the rest of Cambridge, subject, as Andrew says, to other things that are going, as Lynn has alluded to, that are going on, once the rules are agreed for what this is going to look like, that will be the rules that will subsist for the Northeast Cambridge area. So we have to be quite focused at the moment on trying to make it the least worst thing we can, because that is the bubble that will continue to live through the next 7 or 8 years, and on in through the build process, which will take another 10 years beyond that.
Let's go now to Sally McLean.
Oh, hi, yes. I didn't exactly have a question. One thing was just to thank you for all the work you've put in. And the other one was when someone was saying about putting up your slides, particularly the recommendations for filling in the questionnaire to send that off. That was really useful for people that are in a hurry and would like to fill it out, but haven't got maybe time to. Or is that too obvious a thing to do? Would that then discount our questionnaires? Would it be seen as, I don't know, but that was very helpful.
Well, we can certainly send them. They do place a lot of store by people writing individual responses. That I have it from a counsellor that that is particularly welcome. I suppose people take a lot of notice, but they do have to log every comment. So if people don't have time, then it's better to that 300 people in Hurst Park put in the same objections than nobody does.
Right.
So we will certainly take that on board. Thank you.
We can make them individual.
Yes, thank you. Anthony Frayling. I'm just going to try again. Hold on. Anthony, now I think you've got sound.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Yes, I think reference was made to the post I put onto the Nextdoor website, and I think there's so much wrong with these proposals, it's difficult to know where to start. One of my concerns is that we need to find probably the best way to get listened to, and I'm not quite sure whether any of the avenues that are available to us will have very much effect at all. And I'm just wondering what sort of activities we can do individually to raise our voices. I don't know if anybody has any ideas on that. I unfortunately didn't see the whole slideshow. I was at work and I couldn't get to see the beginning. But I was wondering if Andrew or John are open to receiving sort of little ideas to help improve the case that we put to the council.
Yeah, certainly would welcome ideas, particularly if people have particular expertise in a particular area and can kind of drill down into the kind of detail of the supporting evidence of the plan, because beside the actual plan, which is 200 pages, which most people don't really want to go through, there are particular papers about particular points, and if someone's an architect or they know about transport or something, I think that would be very useful. And obviously we welcome a lot of ideas, because I feel I'm just sort of scratching at the surface a bit. In terms of progress, I think the more publicity in local media would help, as Sophie says, because that would then energise our local representatives, and obviously getting in touch with our local representatives to make them aware, in a constructive way. I think, as people keep saying, you've got to have the right tone, don't want to sound NIMBY, but making people aware that it's an issue will hopefully get their attention. So those, yeah. John, any ideas on that?
I think that's all absolutely right. I think the more individuals, send emails to local councillors if you know them, or you even have a passing acquaintance with them. That concentrates their minds and makes them aware that we are concerned about it. And it's right that we should be. I think one of the things we have to be very aware of is that, at least in my opinion, the only thing that will stop this is if the sewage works can't be relocated for technical, environmental, or social reasons. There is sufficient commitment on the part of the City Council to this process that my £5 note says that it would be very difficult to stop it. So I think what we are faced with is a matter of attenuation and improvement rather than trying to stop it. I think frankly, this is a train that is running, and I can't imagine, even with the pandemic, even with financial squeezes on the government purse, even with everything, I can't see what's going to stop it, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to say. Well, it should have been stopped 3 years ago. That was when it should have been stopped.
Well, let's hope you're wrong, John. I think we'll still do our bit to write to our councillors. They don't seem to, of any complexion, they haven't really heard us. So maybe if we all write to all our councillors with some of these points, then perhaps we might get somewhere. I just wanted to add something, if I may, about this question about inequality in Cambridge, which is, I'm sure, of enormous concern to lots of people who live here. And Cambridge has been growing very fast over the past few years. Housing stock in Cambridge has risen apparently by 15% in the last 10 years, which is faster than anywhere else in the country, or as fast as anywhere else in the country. And yet house prices have risen faster than anywhere else. So building new houses actually makes Cambridge less affordable, not more affordable. And I think, you know, perhaps that's something that we could think about in what we say to councillors, because if they are truthfully wanting to make Cambridge a less unequal place, there's all sorts of, and I agree that's a very good aspiration, an essential aspiration. Building vast estates of not very well built, well thought out housing without proper amenities for local people and without you know, all of those things that people actually need is the last thing that will actually reduce inequality in the city. And there is plenty of evidence out there that we could all use in making that case. So yeah, I would like to feel that we make that case. Michael Page, I'm going to go to you. Michael has an idea, he says, for I think direct action. I'm looking forward to seeing Michael Page lying in the Milton Road.
Yeah. Thank you, John, Andrew, for an excellent piece of work. It seems to me that we face a somewhat similar situation to that which we faced when we first heard about the Milton Road project, something which seemed to be unstoppable at the time. And what we did then was to hijack a public meeting, not as NIMBYs, but as people with an alternative design, an alternative vision. And I wonder if we want to get maximum publicity, if we shouldn't do something similar here. Now, it's more difficult because all public meetings these days are conducted on Zoom, and it's very difficult to get the audience backing you up on your side. But nonetheless, perhaps we should try. The next meeting I can think of is something called the Residents Association Forum. I can't remember the date, but I think it's coming up in October. And the planning people will be at that meeting, most likely including Stephen Kelly. We generally don't get councillors there, but we'll have other residents' associations and interest groups, and we could invite the press. And what we did with Milton Road was to squeeze in our own presentation. Now, I think that John's idea of an alternative scheme based upon a density, let's say, of Eddington, is something we should promote, because that's a good exemplar of density, green space, and particularly conservation of water usage. So maybe if we could come up with a handout, or in this case, of course, it would be a Zoom meeting, it would have to be maybe just 3 slides that we could sneak in. That would require some clever footwork with the chair of the meeting, but we might be able to do it. I think we have to make a bit of a fuss, and we have to do it in an unconventional way. And let's try something a bit like that and get some attention. And then, as you rightly say, we really need to get our elected representatives understanding this. Right now, they're all got their heads below the parapet. They don't want to say anything. So that's an idea for me anyway.